For months in Girl World, people have been discussing the fact that Foodie Beauty has been exploiting a child for money. And it felt like no matter what anybody did, nothing was happening, nothing was being done to stop it or to shed light on it. And it kind of felt like an uphill battle. Nobody in Girl World, reaction channel wise, really has enough of a reach or enough of an audience to make it feel like we were making any difference. But that tide seems to slowly be changing. There are different YouTube channels that are starting to cover this, who have a much wider reach than a lot of reaction channels do. But I believe she is also now starting to hit the level of she's no longer just an international fugitive. I think she's hitting the level of international infamy. Um, and I'm going to show you why. And we're going to talk about this. So, there was a German news article released on Foodie. It was written by someone named Daniel Fursch, or Fursch. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But they did get some things wrong in the article, but overall, the biggest issues that we've been trying to deal with, they got right. So I wanted us to take a look at the article a little bit and see what it says. And then I'm going to also link the article below in the description so that you guys can feel free to go and take a look for yourselves. So let's get on in here and see what this says. Next donation fraud exposed. Foodie Beauty claims to fund school with fake photos of Syrian girl. Um, the pictures of the girl, which she previously offered in exchange for donations, could now help convict her of donation fraud again. So, this is an international news article that's saying she was, in fact, offering pictures of this child in exchange for money, which has its own issues with that itself. But it could say, but it says that she could now be convicted of donation fraud again. So, and then we have the pictures of Foodie and the little girl. Thankfully, they blurred everything out. Um, and so it says the scandals surrounding the mukbang influencer Foodie Beauty do not stop. Not least because last year she did what we usually know from Carmen Sandiego, travel around the world and steal. Um, that description stood out for me so much. I loved the show Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid. And, could you see Foodie running around in the big red fancy hat, thinking, that she'd pulled one over on everybody? And then it says a whole buffet of scandals. Um, this is where they get some of the stuff wrong, so we're gonna kind of clarify a little bit. Until a little more than a year ago, the streamer, whose real name is Chantal, lived in her native Canada and was mainly concerned with food in her videos. Lots of food. Mukbangs in general are videos in which people devour extremely large portions of certain dishes or foods, and in a mixture of sensationalism and feeder content, seemed to have found her niche. She did not live in Canada a little more than a year ago. She was in Kuwait for about 3 years. So that is where they got some of that wrong. It says, but when allegations of animal welfare endangerment arose, among other things, Soro fled to Kuwait together with her Syrian husband. She previously handed over two of her cats to an acquaintance. It was not actually an acquaintance. I believe it's closer to her mortal enemy, who later came out and confirmed the terrible state of health of the animals. Arriving in Kuwait with her husband and her third animal, she did not get her third animal, which is Julia, until she was actually living in Kuwait and had been living there for a while. She called for a fundraising campaign, the proceeds of which she wanted to donate to animal welfare organizations in Kuwait so that they could provide medical care for the country's countless stray cats. As an example of this, she took in another kitten, or at least pretended to, because as it turned out, She had released the animal again immediately after the video and never communicated with any of the local animal welfare associations. So that animal that they're talking about right there, that's Bruce, or Bruce Lee. And then Chantal's flight to Syria. When she was wanted for donation fraud, she fled back to Canada, but was also located there and decided without further ado to travel with her husband to his home country of Syria. Here, too, she was criticized above all for engaging in downright misery tourism in the war torn country and for letting her cat fall into disrepair again, um, which she did. That's why Julia ended up getting shaved. It says, for example, by leaving it alone for several days while visiting friends. But here, too, Thoreau ignored all criticism and called for a new donation project. Donations for schoolgirls. Foodie Beauty recently claimed to want to raise money for the schooling of a Syrian girl. She explained that it would be the child of friends and also showed the girl in various streams. She did originally claim that she was just a child of friends that they had made. It has now come out since that it is actually a member of Salah's family. Which I think makes it even more of a questionable situation. If it is his family, why did they not do this out of their own pockets, instead of having everybody else pay for it, and then offering to exchange pictures for said donations? She received criticism not only for collecting money again, although on the other hand, she claimed to earn more than enough herself, but also for showing off the child on the internet and even offering pictures of her in exchange for donations. This is the second time they have made that statement. She can no longer say that it is reaction channels blowing stuff out of the water. It's us over exaggerating. It's us looking for a reason to nitpick. This is, this is an international newspaper. This is a German newspaper. And clearly, this is somebody who does not follow her closely because they do get some things wrong. So she can no longer say that it's just us. At this point, she is reaching international infamy, and eventually, something is going to be done about this. It says, nevertheless, all this still did not seem to ensure that no one gave the influencer money. It still seems as if people sent her donations to her private PayPal account and received updates about the girl in return. And then it says school photos that can't exist. Pictures that she sent a few weeks ago have now appeared on the internet and are once again causing skepticism because the supposed pictures from school have an astonishing similarity to those of the Thoreau took at home. The floor and sofa seem almost identical, and critics believe that Thoreau simply passed off pictures she took in her own home in Syria as photos from school. This suspicion is underpinned by the fact that the school in Syria is only now starting again. Although there is no uniform start date there because of the unrest and acts of war on the ground do not allow for orderly planning for such things, no school starts before September in Syria either. Foodie very much likes to claim that we just Google and we just guess and we're not 100% sure. Newspapers have to work a little bit harder to make sure that facts like this that can easily be searched and found out that they are above board. It's honest, it's factual. So this is no longer us just, reaction channels scooting around Google, finding out whatever information happens to work for us. This just goes to, I believe, fully back up what we have been saying for a long time now. The fact that Thoreau nevertheless sent photos in which the girl allegedly goes to school leaves only a few options open. Either she didn't even know that classes hadn't started yet because she simply didn't care, or she assumed that none of the donors around the world knew when Syria school started again. I'm going to go with the fact that she didn't even care, because we know how excited Chantal gets about movies and movie theaters. She has been stating for months there are no cinemas in Syria at all. Well, then in a recent live stream, she stated it again, and somebody said, "No, actually, there's a movie theater in Damascus. Like it's open. They're still actively posting on their Facebook page." And she was like, "Oh, well, I guess I just never even bothered to check." She doesn't bother to check. She thinks she's smarter than everybody else, and that no matter what she wants us to believe, she can convince us of it. And it backfires on her every time. It says, will Sorrow continue unhindered? In both cases, it can be assumed that the girl has not seen a cent of the donations and that the money will not benefit her school education in any way. Unlike in their previous countries of refuge, however, there are no officials in Syria who can investigate a donation fraud case, because completely different crimes are the order of the day in the war-torn country. So the only option left to her critics to dry up the flow of donations on which Thoreau seems to live is to clarify her situation in actions. And then it says, what do you think of the whole thing? Do you think Thoreau will no longer receive donations at some point? What is your verdict? Um, so that's where it's at. I'm very interested to see what comes from this. We have bigger channels that are covering this now, and now we're having international news articles written. I wish it would have happened sooner. I wish, when everybody started saying there's an issue, we would have had bigger platforms jump on board with us. But I am going to say it's better late than never. At least light is starting to be shown on this. And at some point, she's going to really have to stop and really take in what is being said and how it looks on her, and the fact that while she's in Syria, she's kind of insulated because she keeps saying the government's rebuilding. What are they going to do to me? And that's a very valid point on her end. But what happens when she gets to a country that a government is established and they realize that this is what she's doing? Do you think this is something that could be like marked on her passport to make it harder for her to get back into Canada or to travel to the US or, any place like that? I just found it very interesting. I'm very, very happy that people with a much bigger platform than me, you know, I just hit 500 subscribers, which I'm so excited about. That's such a big deal for me. But my 500 that I reach is nowhere near a million or the entire country of Germany, for that matter, to start shedding light on this. I'm very curious to see where this goes. And I'm also very curious to know if Foodie even realizes that this article is out or not. But like I said, I'm going to link the article in the description so you guys can feel free to check it out. Please don't take my word for it. And then maybe share the article around. Let's see if we can get this spread out a little bit more and get some of this some of this information out in front of new eyeballs that aren't just within Girl World. But let me know if you guys think that Foodie knows that this article exists, and if she does, if you think she's worried about it at all. I personally don't know if she knows it exists, and even if she did, I don't know that she cares because she feels like she's untouchable at this point, um, which is that's a scary way to move through the world. But until I see you guys next time, I'm going to remind you that I need you to be good and behave yourselves, but if you can't, at least do it right and make me proud, and then post it online so we can talk about it later. Bye, guys.